Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Biman Roy. Now, some of you may remember Biman when he was on our network previously. Well, the interview went so well, and we had such a favorable response, we had to invite him back. Now, this time, we're discussing his book, Miss Manhattan. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. But people, if you want to gather everything that Biman has in store, well, you can do no better than heading directly to his personal site. And that's roybiman.com. There you'll find more information on Biman himself, more information on the 3 other books that he's written. Yeah, listen, as of right now, that's 4 books in totality that are available. But make sure you're checking back in frequently because there's a 5th that he just completed that is awaiting publication. So all of those books are available for purchase through his site, roybiman.com. It's a one-stop shop. And you have to head on over there to get your hands on all of them. So once again, that's roybiman.com. And I do want to take this opportunity and point out that Biman was brought to our network, People of Distinction, by one of the best publishers in the business. Of course, I'm talking about Author Reputation Press. People, if you're a writer or you know someone that has written a book and they need help moving it, well, you can do no better than contacting ARP. Okay? They specialize in taking your literary creation to the next level. They're one of the best in the business to do it. Head on over to authorreputationpress.com today and figure out what they can do for you. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Biman here on the line with us. And at the end of the day, he's the expert. He's written it. He's going to be able to articulate it much better than I ever could. Biman, welcome back to People of Distinction. How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful. Well, Biman, this is a true pleasure, man. I love having reoccurring guests here on the network. I feel like there's just there's a familiarity there, right? And we've established something, Biman, that I want to continue here with. And I know we have a lot of information to cover, but for those of our listening audience members that missed the first time you were on our network, tell us a little bit more about your background.
I was born in India and came to this country in 1980. And I was trained as a physician back there. But here, when I came, of course, I was just like anyone. And that was, a lot of times people feel kind of at a disadvantage that they don't know anybody, they are just here. But I felt absolutely at home because I love people, and I don't feel that I'm alone, and that is where Manhattan or New York came into my life. I was working as a cashier in Manhattan. Working until middle of the night and taking the subway back to Queens where we used to live. But I never felt scared or anything. I banded with people, sat with strangers, ate with strangers, talked with strangers, and that was my pleasure. And that is the way New York opened its heart to me. If you feel uncomfortable at a place, you always feel shy, you don't want to mingle with others, but I'm not of that type. And that is where I started knowing and loving the city more and more. Later, I would go back to different places, find out places that interests me or historically important. I'll study about those places and go back again and come home. And whenever I have some time, I'll just sit down and write a poem. And that is how this book came about.
I wanna go a little further into inspiration here because, as you mentioned, in India you were a physician. Now, I know you had many jobs when you first came here to this country, but where does the love for poetry and the love for writing fit into that?
Well, poetry was my passion from my young age, and I wrote and published. And when I came here, I didn't know anybody. I had time on my hand, and I would go to the library, read books, and go to the poetry sessions and attend all different kinds of events, literary events at that time. I had time on my hand. And at one point, I felt that I should write. I was kind of toying with that idea for a while. But what happened is that when 9/11 happened, I said to myself, no, I cannot wait any longer. It was something that came as a shock. And I seriously felt that I'm losing something, or I may lose something that I love so much. Mm-hmm. And that was the city. So that's the point when I decided that no, I must write about the city, and I kept writing, and it took me kind of 3 years to complete the book. And it is in many ways it's a unique book. I'm not just bragging. It is a totally different kind of book, and I know a lot of New York poets. I mean poets in New York there who wrote about the city. But one thing is different is that they are insiders. They are born here, they're raised here, they're in the city, they wrote about the city. But I'm an outsider. I came from another country and came that was kind of for the first few years. And so I was fresh, and my outlook was different from the people who are insiders. Mm-hmm. So that is where the difference is. And somebody who will read these poems may be able to find that. And it is hard for me to say exactly what. But it was clearly a different experience coming from a total outsider. That's where this book is unique in my view.
People, again, we're here on the line with Biman Roy. We're discussing his amazing poetry book, Miss Manhattan, which is available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through his personal site, roybeeman.com. You know, Biman, this is a poetry book, and we know it's filled with all of these fantastic poems about the wonderful city of Manhattan. So without further ado, if you have a poem that is readily available that you could read for us, we would love to hear it.
I'll read a poem called Sketches on Subway Steps. These are short sketches. Mm-hmm. 1. Pigeons poke around the cement feet of statues of bearded men who fill the history books to add weightage here and there. A dog pissing on a dogwood tree in full bloom. 2. Between all these trains, beneath the cavernous avenues, carrying this burdened mass from borough to borough, so much emptiness and so much plenty side by side. Lorca must have had a great time here. 3. Sweet cannabis. Man on the park bench, drugged by sunset, sweet cannabis, man on the park bench, the sunset doped by the man. Trains hustle and blown newspapers stick to a wall of tense air. 4. This bounty of restless drive from dawn to dusk, weekdays and weekends, no mercy in the red traffic eye, no air navigates the trees, and a sense of breathlessness spreading wings toward Hudson. New York, come to my lap, I will soothe you.
You know, Biman, I think it's safe to assume the answer to this next question, but talk to us about the inspiration behind it and really what that poem represents for you.
In a sense, it talks about New York and how it unfolds to me as an outsider and a poet. All these vignettes, and at the end, you feel the splendor as well as the pain or sparsity of the city at the same time. When it says, no mercy in the red traffic eye, no air navigates the trees, and a sense of breathlessness spreading wings toward Hudson. New York, come to my lap, I will soothe you.
During this entire writing process of Miss Manhattan, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing the book?
It is something that I was passionate about in the sense of knowing a place, knowing people, and knowing the intensity of life at the same time, sometimes the underlying emptiness.
Biman, you started to go into this a little bit earlier, and I want to go back into it. You were talking about other poets in New York and why you felt that you were unique, right, in comparison. Well, I want to go a little further in depth with that because, of course, when we talk about poetry and we talk about the city of New York and Manhattan, this by no means is the first book written about it, right? New York is probably one of the most written about cities in the world, right? I mean, everybody knows it. What would you say separates your poetry book from others in its category?
I think it tries to address the city as if it's a living being.
Mm-hmm.
And as a living being, you have your passion and you have your compassion, both. Passion in the viewer's eye or the viewer's heart, and the compassion as the city expresses itself, how it cradles all these immigrants, all these people from different parts of the world, treats them more or less equally. Everybody, all New Yorkers are so independent-minded, and they love the city like anything.
Yeah.
And as if the city is their resting place and their dreaming place also. Lots of dreamers came out of New York, and they were all over the country. And this is a kind of inspiring place, and it was then and even now. And what happens in New York, you see it happening all over the world, and not just in this country. And that is what is special about New York. And the people. I loved people there. I've spent hours and hours talking to strangers going from one place to another, moving from one eatery to another eatery. I mean, moving from one museum to another museum. So, I mean, if you don't go anywhere else, if you stay in New York all your life, you won't be tired. That's my feeling.
As we close out here, Biman, your poetry, as I mentioned, is something that is so nostalgic for me, right? Because I have such a close relationship with the city of New York. So I'm loving this, and I know my listening audience is as well. And I could sit here, man, and I could talk to you for hours, okay? Because of that connection that I have. And I have to remind myself, Benji, this is not about you, okay? So we'll have you back on the network, and we'll discuss things further. But as we close out here, Biman, I could think of no better way to do so than with another one of your fantastic poems. So please, myself, my listening audience, we are all ears. Take it away.
Okay, I will read something which is a very well-known place, Hotel Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the name of the poem is Hotel Chelsea. I have always lived close to a river, a different river each time. Now it is the Hudson. Just want to remind you that I came from Calcutta, and Ganges is the main river there, which is a river that kind of flows out there and in the heart of many Indians, River Ganges. So I have always lived close to a river, a different river each time. Now it is the Hudson. Sun slants from the east, air pierced by arrows of buntings, and crests of lapis lazuli drift slowly shoreward. Not too far from here, secret corridors and shadowy foyers, wolf-like, foreboding dread. Tales of murder, suicides, splattered on weepy walls. A Hotel Chelsea of the heart, where we come to fend the salt of our meat. It makes me feel safe and useful as each night I gather my supple limbs close to my ribs at each bend of river and say, into desire I shall come.
People, listen. As I mentioned, Miss Manhattan was today's anchor, okay? But when you head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and RoyBeeman.com, you're going to be greeted with other titles that he's written, okay? There's 3 other ones that you're going to want to check out as well. Now, last time that we had Biman here on the network, we discussed his other poetry book, Navigating the Quartz Forest. Also, what he has available when you head on over to his pages is another narrative called Dinosaur Hour, and then the last one, Of Moon and Washing Machine. Now, those are the 4 titles that are available as of this moment, and as I stated before, there's a 5th on the horizon. Now, we don't have the time to go into it today, but that 5th one that you're going to want to check back in for frequently is called Sorrow Has a Weight of Its Own. All of these poems and these poetry books are so deep, okay? There's so much more that meets the eye. This is something you're going to want to add onto your shelf, and something you're just going to want to get lost in, because here's the thing about Miss Manhattan. Whether you've been to New York or you haven't, hearing those words is going to transport you there. Okay, I know, and listening to just those 2 poems that he read, it takes me back to me walking through the streets, seeing the pigeons, seeing all of the characters that are roaming those streets as well. It's amazing how well, Biman has such a way with his words, and there's something about it that just leaps off the pages. And there's something to just be admired. You have to head on over there, pick up your copies, and get lost in it so you can experience it as well. We covered 2 of them today. The book is littered with it. head on over Amazon, Barnes & Noble, RoyBeeman.com. Pick up all of the books that Biman has written and just get lost in it. And, of course, you can thank me later. Biman, this has been an absolute pleasure. Such an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much. Thank you talking to you, Benji.